The Eyes Have It, from Hurley. Hey guys, I just started listening to your podcast a couple of weeks ago on my hour-plus commute one way, and I'm just devouring the episodes. I just wanted to reach out with a small story of my own. It has to do with the belief about praying for cleansing light to clean your house. I did something similar. I should start with saying I was not, and still consider myself not very paranormally inclined. I believe there is stuff out there. I just haven't seen, or I guess I haven't let myself be open to the paranormal. Shrugging it off as, well, that was weird, as I'm sure most of us do. Anyway, when I was about 12 or 13, I would have trouble falling asleep. Just a general feeling of something near in the shadows. The way I was able to fall asleep, and this was almost every night, was to envision myself encapsulated in a bubble. I thought of it as my dream spaceship. Some nights I would have to raise my arm straight up, and I could almost feel the lid. But I would be wide awake, eyes pressed closed as tight as I could, until my dream spaceship had completely surrounded me, almost like an eggshell. Now that I think of it, as most stories do, it has shaken loose some memories. This only happened in 2 houses. The first house was on Salt Spring Island, and both my mother and sister swear they had seen blood on the walls in the living room of that house. The other one, and this would probably be the one time something freaked me out, other than the feeling of someone behind you causing to speed up and almost run away, and that occurred on a street in Victoria. It was a new school year, and I had been given a new geometry set with rulers and compasses and what have you. For whatever reason, I felt compelled to take the double-pointed protractor and draw a circle which looked like an eye. I did this near the head of my bed, and instantly regretted it. I distinctly remember doing one circle, but I could not honestly tell you if I did the second one. Regardless, now something would stare at me while I was trying to sleep. This is the second house where I would need a sleep spaceship. Now, the strange thing is, I distinctly remember putting these eyes near the window, which would be on the right side of the wall. Over the course of a year or two, as kids do, I decided to move my bed from under the window to the other side of the room. I never noticed until we were packing up and moving that the eyes I had carved into the wall were past the centre mark and now closer to the left of the wall, moving to where I had moved my bed. I don't remember a lot about living in that house in Victoria, but I've never forgotten the carved-in-the-wall eyes. Perfectly round. I really enjoy the podcast and the entertaining way you share information about paranormal subjects. Sorry this is so long. I honestly meant to say it's just a, hey, love your podcast, keep up the great work type of message. But just like me, this message is long-winded.
So thank you, Hurley. That's an old one from the archives. But I got to tell you, the last thing I want is eyes on my wall. Eyes anywhere. I don't want to be observed, period. Never mind by anything in or on the wall.
So, when I was reading Hurley's story, it, ironically, as they mentioned about it shaking loose memories for them, it shook loose a memory for me of a story I read as a child in a newspaper that really quite spooked me out.
Okay.
And this was about a family who claimed that they'd bought an oak wardrobe from a shop. This is like 40 odd years ago, this.
Right.
And it had got some knots in it, which, if you know, a bit of leeway, you could suggest that perhaps they looked a little bit like eyes.
Okay.
This family claimed that when they bought this wardrobe for their, I think it's for their daughter's bedroom, there was 4 knots in it. And they claimed, over the period of the next 12 months, about 50 other knots appeared in the wardrobe to basically start creating eyes. So like little faces began to appear in the wardrobe doors.
Don't like
and
it.
so they went to the Society for Psychical Research to help them investigate their wardrobe, and I don't think anybody followed up on it. But reading that story, that's the only kind of comparable thing I've ever come across where either somebody claiming that something has, an inanimate object has grown eyes to look at people, or a pair of drawn eyes have moved around a room on their own volition.
Right. Interesting. That is, there's something, I mean, aside from just the obvious, that's weird, but there's something really upsetting about the idea of more knots appearing of in a piece of wood, like especially that many. That's like a, I don't know. I can't. There's a, maybe it's that what's that tryptophobia thing? Maybe that's what it is. I'm just kind of having a little bit of that because I definitely have that. But I don't know. It's just a very disturbing image.
Yep. I'm going to have to try and see if I can get to the bottom of it, because it's one of those stories. I definitely remember reading it as a child in the paper, and I'm not sure I've seen anything about it since anywhere. So I'll have to do some digging, because obviously I've come across all kinds of strange,
Yeah.
and often amusing stories about haunted furniture, like the haunted bunk beds and such like. Clocks, tables. I don't think I've come across a haunted carpet yet, but you never know. Lamps, pictures. There's a crying girl story broke today in the UK. The old
really?
haunted pictures. Everybody used to say it was a crying boy. Now a family have bought a portrait of the crying girl that apparently has frightened everybody, and so they've given it to this charity shop. They've sold it. They've brought it. Somebody else has brought it back, claiming the same thing. So haunted furniture seems to be in as we approach the end of summer.
Interesting. Well, I wonder, I mean, the Newkirks seem more and more popular. And I know they've got the haunted objects thing, so I wonder if it's sort of an outgrowth of that. More people are talking about it because more people are talking about them. 'Cause I know their new film is coming out soon, The Unbinding, as well. So I just have to imagine that's really going to, actually, I think it'll be out by the time this airs. So I have to just imagine that's really going to, sorry, say again?
I think they've had a couple of premieres already.
Yeah, I've seen that. A few have happened. I don't know if it's entered wide release, but yeah, it's definitely out in some markets. So I just kind of wonder if that's really pushed the concept of cursed furniture a little further into awareness.
Well, maybe. I think for people like us, we are fully aware of the Newkirks and what they do, and I think often you can, and this is no detriment to Greg and Diana at all. I think sometimes you can overestimate people's appeal outside of their paranormal circle.
Right.
And so often I think I would be very surprised if the people involved in this story that's broken today about this haunted picture, which, to be fair, I doubt very much, because there was never curse of the crying. There was never a curse of the crying boy. It was just a mass-produced portrait that was on inflammable wood. That's why it never caught fire, because it couldn't bloody burn. But nobody mentions that fact of the story. It was painted. It was on this special stuff it was flame retardant. So
right.
And a lot of houses that caught fire strangely used chip pans. Which did you have chip pans?
Doesn't sound
so
familiar.
Basically, in the UK, in the olden days, before we decided that we probably shouldn't eat everything cooked in grease. Essentially what you would do is you would fill a pan up on your hob, and you would fill it with boiling oil. Well, you would fill it with oil and boil it so it was red hot and spitting.
Okay.
And then you would pour chips into it to cook them. And often, of course, people would put too much oil in, and then when they put the chips in, basic physics here, you get a bit of displacement. And incredibly, fat would overflow over the sides and catch fire, and then the kitchen would go poof. And in the vast majority of these houses that caught fire, obviously the story, strangely enough, started, was it in Rotherham? I think the first proper crying boy story came from Rotherham, because it was one of the first stories that David Clarke covered when he was a journalist for the Sheffield Star.
Oh, okay. So
there's a bit of a Fortean connection with it, and he's collected several of them. I've touched some of David's crying boy portraits.
Cool.
And I've taken some pictures of them as well. It was quite funny as well, because he fetched them to a conference and people were going out their way not to walk past them.
Really?
Even though we'd just done a talk about how it was all stuff and nonsense, people still empowered these portraits with some kind of paranormal malevolence.
Speaking of malevolence, just quickly, we gave a shout out to Cryptese merch on the last mini show. We fucked up the name. we called them cryptid tees. It's cryptees, CRYPTES. I realized that when I was looking at their Instagram account this morning. So yeah, if you want a shirt, well, I don't think they're selling this one, but Paul has a lovely shirt from Cryptees that says Malevolent on it.
Yes. I bought a beautiful Sasquatch t-shirt. Oh, I bought a beautiful Sasquatch t-shirt from them. They are some wonderful designs for anyone who has a love of all strange creatures from both the paranormal and the cryptid world. So I recommend them. They are beautiful, original designs as well, and they deserve your support if you're looking for some sexy new monster-themed clothing.
And who among us isn't?
Why not? He says wearing his the Creature from the Black Lagoon t-shirt.
I'm wearing my Brett Manning. This is the fall shirt. I can't remember what it's called, but anyways, it was the first one I bought from her. I love it.
Super Brett.
Yes, and also I assume if you're listening to the show, you know who Brett is. But if you just on the off chance you're new to all this, also go follow Brett Manning on Instagram and buy her stuff. It's amazing. I intend to buy some more shirts once I'm making a little more money because I have a couple. I have the a magenta and orange one from this limited run she did with the company. I think it's called Die With Your Boots On. Mm-hmm. But because I was significantly larger then, I bought them. They're huge. They're like boat sails on me now. So when I've got a little more cash, I'm going to buy some new, slightly sized down designs. But that's neither here nor there. The thing I wanted to talk about with the David Clark thing and the portraits. I mean, that's such a powerful force, right? This idea that what we put on stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that is powerful in its own way, but I think it's different. Like when we talk about items that have like a bad history, or there's a story Anthony has told on the show before about the jersey in a pawn shop up island that had a real unpleasantness attached to it. I think there's a real difference between those things and what David was talking about with those portraits. Because with the portraits and with shit like Annabelle, which of course is not real, that's something we put on it. But I don't think that makes it powerful. I think it's just that is lore. But what we're talking about when things actually end up imbued with something, I think that's something entirely different. And that is something I think you need to watch out for. Yes.
Yeah. As often, these things often develop a life of their own.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is hard to divine which is which, right? Because you have so many people who are invested in selling you a story, right? About whatever it is, because when it becomes an industry, you're going to have people like that. And that's how you end up with shit like the Dybbuk box.
The what box?
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Let's leave that where it belongs. In the bin.
Along with the guy who owns it.
Yes, I'd just like to give a shout out to the only true haunted doll in the world, and that's my good friend Robert the Doll. Robert, thank you for your continued good fortune that you send my way.
And me too, because if Paul's on board, then so am I. Thank you, Robert.
Any doll that gets marijuana sent to him through the post from concerned visitors is all right in my book. Do you know that about Robert the Doll?
I know Robert the Doll. I didn't realize people sent him weed.
Yeah, people send him spliffs through the post.
How do I get that job?
It's one of those strange things. When I did an episode on haunted dolls with David Weatherly. Nearly 4 years ago now, Jesus. And we did a big thing on Robert the Doll. It's not tongue-in-cheek. David was very careful to make out that we should be very careful when we spoke about Robert, that we should give him the respect he deserves.
Sure.
And since then, things have been all right for Mysteries and Monsters. So I've always got Robert's all right in my book. But one of the amusing things was that people send Robert gifts, and they get a large amount of spliffs. They probably get about 20 or 30, obviously from unknown addresses around the US, to people saying to Robert, chill out.
Interesting. I mean, I guess I know people who tip pizza guys with weed, so why not a haunted doll? No one ever did that for me. Because I don't smoke weed that much, so I'm fine with that. But I had a friend who delivered pizza for a long time, and he used to get a lot. One time he got a bunch of pills, and he turned them over to his coworkers. They said, you can sell these. He goes, no, I can't. Here, have fun. Merry Christmas. Enjoy. This will get you through the rest of your shift. Yeah. But anyway.
Perhaps you should have dressed yourself as a sailor like Robert, and then you would have.
I feel like that's sending a very different message.
Who knows? The potential is exciting, is it not?
No. No. Nick and I just finished watching our way through the Police Academy movies, and now all I can hear is the Blue Oyster bar music. Ask your grandkids, folks. Or ask your grandparents.
Yeah, appealing to the pensioner demographic there, Brent.
Yeah, right?